Hello and welcome to the MLB DFS on the RotoRadar podcast. My name is Joshua Riemer. I'm joined by none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Jared Block. Jared, how are you doing on this fine Tuesday afternoon, sir?
Doing well, man. I have, you can't really tell, but I have all of my windows open and fans running. It's finally at a point where I don't have to, freak out about it being too cold or too hot here. Not that I ever have to worry about it being too hot, but it's a nice 70, 75 degrees here. I love it. And, last night was a good slate. Had a lot of pitching options go kind of all over the place, and today is like the exact opposite in terms of the pitching pool that we have here today. And yeah, glad to pull out what was a really close win last night. A last 2-inning Hunter Renfroe base hit gave us the lead, and so that's what we're thankful for today.
Yes, sir. Exactly. Really appreciate you. You filled in for me yesterday. My internet didn't want to cooperate, so there was that. And glad you were able to fill in, and glad to talk MLB DFS with you again, which is what we are going to do here as we talk about today's 10-game slate that's on the docket. Plenty to go over, plenty to talk about. I'm excited about it. MLB has been great to start out the year. Let's keep it going today.
Yep, big slate today. There are a lot of 5 p.m. window games, but we're going to skip over a lot of those and focus on the games. And starting at 6 Central, 7:07 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to start with this Detroit-Toronto game. First, right now, the Tigers are coming in as a plus 235 moneyline underdog behind Matt Manning. Alek Manoah gets the bump for the Blue Jays. He's a minus 290 home favorite. 8.5 is the total. The first thing that jumps out to me here, outside of the big favorite, is the fact that they just have this price tag wrong on DraftKings today. Manoah comes in at 7,700, whereas on FanDuel, you're going to get him closer to the studs today, coming in at 9,900. Some price discrepancies we saw it with, specifically with Bryce Elder last night. He was around the mid-8s on FanDuel, mid-6s on DraftKings. Am I just missing something here, or is this a misprice?
I wouldn't say you're missing something. I can somewhat understand it. Just poor performance so far to start the year is, I think, the main contributor to this. But I think there's too many driving factors here to believe in the fact that he's going to struggle. One, obviously, it's Detroit. He is the big money line favorite here. That's a really good thing. The second thing, which is something we're also going to talk about when we get to the hitters, it is the home opener for the Blue Jays, which is a big deal. And, those people up in Toronto, they love their baseball. So that crowd's going to be there. They're going to be cheering away. And if you've watched Manoah pitch before, he's very much someone that gets behind the crowd, or the crowd gets behind him, and he gets fired up from that. So I think Manoah, with the crowd behind him, he's had somewhat of a tough start to the season. The K rate's been down. The walk rate's been up. His xFIP has been pretty bad so far this year at 6.17. I think that's where you're getting that price tag in. But I think because of him being a big favorite, Vegas is betting on him here to win this one and to have a good performance. Our friends over at Prize Picks are predicting him to have a good performance with a 6.5 strikeout line and a 39.5 pitcher fantasy score. I agree with the Prize Pick side of things. I don't agree with the price tag that they set on DraftKings. I think you can take advantage of that. I think the real question is, are you taking advantage of this FanDuel price tag where they have him priced up as the second highest or third highest priced pitcher on the day?
Right. So I think that we also are taking, maybe DraftKings is looking over this a little bit too much, but the one start that he did get blown up on was that St. Louis team, and we wouldn't have pitched him in that spot against that team. Bounce back performance against Kansas City. I guess the walk rate's a little bit concerning this year. He has 6 walks over 2 starts, 4 of them being in that Kansas City game, but he still went 7 innings and struck out 5, got the win. So I know that, overall, this isn't really a FanDuel play necessarily. I think it's in consideration. I don't know. I think that the DraftKings price tag just gives him a little bit more of a, hey, pay attention to this. We're actually going to try to play him today over there.
Yeah, I can agree with it. The funny thing is that you have these 3 right-handed pitchers that are all studs in their own perspective. You have Shohei pitching against the Nats, you have Alek Manoah pitching, and you have Jacob deGrom pitching. All 3 of them are pitching against the 3 worst teams in the league against right-handed pitching. Kansas City dead last, Detroit second to last, and Washington third to last. So you really have to kind of pick and choose which stud you want, because all 3 of these guys being in such good positions. Luckily, you can play 2 out of the 3 on FanDuel or on DraftKings. They made it exceedingly easy for us, pricing one of these guys below 8K in Alek Manoah. The question is on FanDuel, which guy are you going to choose? I think it's kind of still up in the air for me. I have an idea of who I want, but all three of them are good options.
Yeah, I think all three are good options. I really do think it kind of comes down to what bats you really want, and then as long as you allow a rough estimate of around 10K for your pitcher, you can make some cases for each guy from there. Again, I'm probably siding with Manoah as my. Yeah, we'll talk about it. I think he's closer to third, but you can make cases he's second too on FanDuel. But DraftKings, yeah, I think you really want to consider where that is today.
Yep, for sure.
If there was something, I'm sorry, I can't. I can pull up the Prize Pick stuff. Is his strikeout number anywhere where we'd like it?
6.5. I think it's a solid number.
It's a solid number. I feel like whenever it gets close to 7, it's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, Detroit is striking out around. I think it was 6.5, 6.6 times per game so far through the season. So I like it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, on the other side, we're gonna get this Toronto team with the second highest implied total on the slate at 5.8. It opened up around 5.8 as well, and we'll talk about the Cardinals and the Coors game just like it is every single time that it's on there. The last several days have been all Cardinals. So this Toronto team, though, gonna be a top 2 stack today. Probably just gonna be a 1B compared to the Cardinals here. But I like what I see against Manning, and I know that there are limited samples between some of these guys, but is there any way that this spot gets kind of trolly with Manning on the mound? I know you have some things good to say about him too.
Yeah, I don't think he's a bad pitcher. I mean, I think he's a solid arm. He's only going to improve. He's a top prospect for this team. He's actually pretty good against right-handed pitching. We've seen it not only at the beginning of this season where he has a 0 ISO against right-handed pitching in 2023 so far. He also has a 53% ground ball rate against right-handed pitching. But we even saw this last year where he had a 20% K rate against righties. The ISO was held under 100. He limited righties to a fair amount. So I do kind of still like the Vlads and Chapmans just because I think there's upside there. We know this Detroit bullpen's bad. Both of them have been smashing righties to start out the year, but I think you could be just fine going with the Dalton Varsho and maybe some of the lefties at the bottom of this lineup too. In terms of all those lefties, who's performing the best so far this year, it's very easily been Kiermaier to start out the year, so I don't mind going there. Maybe I know the correlation's going to be a little funky with 9-4, but I still think there's upside to just getting lefties in this lineup and feeling fine with that.
Yeah. Are people going to be a little bit over or expecting more from this Toronto team today? Because it kind of feels like it.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, they're the second highest implied run total on the slate, so I would imagine that a lot of people are going to be interested. I can't say the same for myself.
Yeah, I think that they, again, should be considered in a top 5 scenario. We have a lot of important spots to talk about coming up, though, and that's not even Coors related, but it is, but it isn't. So there's a lot of other good teams that are going to be in play today. So let's go ahead and keep moving along here. Just thought that might be interesting to where we get maybe a little bit more ownership on the Toronto guys than maybe it should be today. San Diego and the New York Mets are next. Right now, the Padres are coming in as a plus 126 underdog behind Weathers. Peterson for the Mets minus 148 at home. Over-under sits at 9 here. We had some wind in this game yesterday. We're going to have some more wind in here today. 70 degrees at first pitch at Citi Field. Winds blowing out to center, right center, around 14 to 15 miles an hour here. So that pitcher park does kind of regress a little bit back to more of a medium / maybe even a hitter's friendly situation here today. So let's start with this weather spot and the Mets. I know that we have a total of 9. I just feel like, you can make cases for either of these squads today, but I think that where I would lean is potentially, this is probably just going to be a stalemate situation, kind of like it was yesterday. Talked about, obviously we had better starting pitching on the slate yesterday with Scherzer and Darvish here, but I do think that this is more of a, like I said, kind of a stalemate situation. Let's talk about Weathers first, though. Any Mets interest here, or are we kind of just, like I said, staying away?
Any Mets interest here? Not really. I think I'm fine with just staying away. I know Weather struggles against righties. The problem is you don't really have a righty on this team that has a decent ground ball rate, which is what you kind of need to attack Weather. So, yeah, I'm not really sure if I want to go to anyone. I guess you can go to Marte. I'll be interested to see if he's going to be in the lineup, considering he had an injury earlier in the week.
Right.
Is he in concussion protocol yet? I
I
thought they
think he got
mentioned.
hurt Sunday.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. In terms of the rest of this team, probably not. I mean, this is one of those games where I'm happy to stay away from. In terms of Vegas, they're not really leaning towards one side scoring a lot of runs either. So, happy to just stay away.
Feels like a very interesting competitive game to watch. One of those that's probably just left off the board in terms of us really, really liking one side or the other. Because again, 20 teams in play today. You're going to want to choose the best 3 to 5 and run from there.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. I think the other side is relatively the same, although I do think, I kind of just respect both sides. I think Peterson has the stuff in order to, like, the ground ball rate's pretty good here to where I think it takes out a lot of these right-handed hitters for the Padres. The one guy that could sneak through here would be Manny Machado. But other than that, I don't really have much to say. And this game's going to be pretty close, I think, and just pretty pitcher dominant.
Yeah, I would tend to agree.
All right, let's move on. Got more games to talk about here. Cincinnati, Atlanta is something we targeted heavily last night. See if we can do the same thing today. Reds plus 194 behind Sessa. Kyle Wright takes the mound for the Braves here. He's a minus 235 home favorite. 9 is the total here. We saw Bryce Elder pitch 6 1/3. Did really well, 7 Ks, quality start. Didn't qualify for the win because it ended up going to extras and the Braves walked it off with Sean Murphy. But this is going to be another spot where I think many people aren't going to discuss the right spot because there are other studs on the board, but you can make cases that he's in a really good spot today too.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be interesting to see how they gear him up for today, considering that this is going to be his first start of the season. I think there's certainly upside here for it. I kind of respect this Cincinnati team more than I respect most teams. More of these bottom tier teams, I guess is what I mean. So, not necessarily overboard on the play. You have 3 studs that you can choose from that all feel like the right options. So I don't see a need to force this one, but I certainly don't mind it. It's not a bad play necessarily.
Yeah, it's certainly something you don't have to force. I think that DraftKings would agree with you as well. I mean, he is 9,300 there, so he's going to be definitely a guy that's under 10% today with those guys right up at the top. In terms of his strikeout props or anything related to that, outs props, probably just pause that for a little bit. I know that Elder had a good outing yesterday. I would assume where the Braves are at, already losing Max Fried, they're going to be cautious here. So I could see him going 4 or 5 innings and calling it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked.
All right. I don't have anything for the Reds, though. We said that maybe Friedel was in a decent spot yesterday. Fraley, guys that could get to Bryce Elder, but they kind of got kept in check the whole game. And I know there were runs scored late. It's kind of just a scenario where I'm willing to stay away from a Reds team.
Yeah, I'm curious to talk about this Braves team though that I think is pretty high upside here.
Yeah, they certainly do. They're going to be in that group of teams where I think that there's like 3 or 4 really, really solid second tier teams outside of the Cardinals who are going to be our top tier team. And I'm curious to see where you put them today because I would lean towards them at least rivaling the Toronto Blue Jays here. And I think that's with Sessa on the mound. We know this is a guy last season who had an xFIP over 5. The K rate was under 20% to both handedness. He's kind of just a guy that can get ground balls and induce that soft contact, but he also has the ability to really give it up here. So I think that with this Braves team, a little bit of a slower day yesterday for them. Ashcraft kind of kept them in check, and not many did anything, but I do think that today is a little bit different of a story. So which handedness are you looking at first here?
Looking at righties against Sessa, that's usually what he struggles with. There's a very limited sample size this season, but if you just look back to last season, you can see that ISO's higher against righties, weighted on base average is higher against righties, even hard contact is a little bit higher against righties. So I think there is upside against Sessa here for this Braves team. If we're looking at righties, best hitter so far this year on this team against right-handed pitching that is a righty has been Sean Murphy. He's been a stud recently. So I don't mind going to the Sean Murphy spot. I have a lot of interest in the Acuna spot too. I think it's high upside, and even Austin Riley isn't a bad play today. So I think all these guys deserve some love. And honestly, if we're looking from a from a prize pick perspective, I just want to see, do they don't have the Acuna, or they might have the Acuna number. I might have not put in his name correctly.
Oh,
Uh,
it's always the teal day. Like it's just type Ronald.
yeah, there you go. I Acuna at 8.5 fantasy points, man. I'll another one of my steals guys that I like to take because they always are attempting. So I think that Acuna is in a solid spot for that 8.5 fantasy score.
Yep, I like it. Whenever there's still upside, I like that spot, and we've seen that he's just been a monster in terms of just getting on base so far to start the year. So I don't mind that. Probably more of a 5 flex kind of play, or something to pair with the taco if you wanted to go that direction. So yeah. Anyway, I think that the Braves, I would say, I don't know if I'm willing to make a decision just yet because I think that I might like a team better than both of those, the Blue Jays and the Braves.
You like them more than the Blue Jays and the Braves, or you like the Blue Jays?
There is a team that I think I like more than the
Oh,
Blue
okay.
Jays and Braves.
Well, is it the Cardinals?
No. The
I
Cardinals
know,
are
I know.
clearly number one, but
I'm
yeah.
kidding. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think there's definitely some more teams to talk about. I think this is a really good team though, and I think there's some good upside here. This is kind of pretty close to getting in my top 3. I think they're better than the Blue Jays overall.
Yeah. I would slightly lean that. Yeah, but I think that maybe they both fall out potentially as we kind of get our top 2 or 3 teams. But again, Acuna over fantasy makes some sense there. All right. I think we can go ahead and move on here and talk about the next game, which is going to be the Chicago White Sox and Minnesota Twins. Right now, the White Sox are coming in as a plus 128 underdog behind Lance Lynn, Pablo Lopez, and Twins minus 152 at home. 7.5 is the total. Vegas clearly respects both of these pitchers today. For the weather in this game, we're going to get a spot where it's really hot, like it's 80 degrees, so it's really beautiful in that aspect. The wind is blowing right to left there at 13 to 15 miles an hour. One thing I wanted to bring up today specifically is how much, and I guess you can take this with a grain of salt if you don't think it's going to matter too much, but we have a spot where the Timberwolves play late night against the Lakers, and it's not a home game for them. Right? It's in LA, a basketball NBA talk here. How much is that going to play into the attendance today at in Minnesota?
I don't think all that much. I would be
Nothing.
shocked if it played all that much.
I
Maybe
dream
I'm
to.
wrong.
All right, yeah, I guess I can dream in that respect. That's not really a take, I guess.
Yeah, in this spot, I think that this is a really interesting spot where Lopez feels a little overinflated, in my opinion. I know the start has been really good for him to start out the year, averaging 46 FanDuel points in both of his first 2 starts. But this is a pretty decent White Sox team that doesn't necessarily strike out all that much. I'm really confused why his pitcher strikeout is all the way up to 6 and why the fantasy score is all the way up to 37.5. I feel like that's super overinflated. Am I wrong there? Am I just overlooking something?
Might be overinflated a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't
White
know.
Sox ninth best team, weighted runs created above average so far this season too. Like I don't mind hitting some unders here on the Pablo Lopez stuff. And who were the
Yeah,
first
I
two
mean
opponents?
Lopez had come out and he did face
Oh,
the
bro.
Marlins, and I think he gave it up late. But yeah, I mean I think it's a little bit overinflated.
It was Miami and KC that he hit 46 against. Yeah, this is
Right.
super overinflated, dude. I love those unders. Well, maybe that's a slip play, but or maybe it's just something I'll recommend on Twitter later today. But those unders are juicy, man. There's no reason he should be this high with against a pretty good White Sox offense that isn't striking out. Like they're one of the lower strikeout teams in the MLB right now. A weird thing to say because we're used to this White Sox team striking out so much, but anyway, it's just
Right.
to further that point that like truly you have 3 main pitchers that you're focusing on in DFS, and Lopez isn't one of those 3 main guys. Anything else that you want to talk about here in terms of Lopez or the White Sox?
Just to clarify, you want under 37.5? Is that the
Yeah,
number you want?
yeah,
Okay. I
I
still
like
think
that.
he can get 6 strikeouts and still lose that fancy number. So, um,
Yeah, I
that would be,
guess.
that would be just nitpicking. But I like
Yeah,
the under of 37.5. I also don't think that there's a clear pathway to the quality start or win for him. So,
that's a good
I
point.
do that. Yeah, I think that with the wind, we'll have to monitor the wind here, but right to left, that could easily help out the righties on that Chicago team. So I don't mind some of that stuff. Outside of that, this is a game where I think we could have just said, we don't really have much interest here, but I like the under of Pablo Lopez.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know. I wanted to contribute, so I felt like I needed to
Yeah,
contribute
I know.
something to the
I
game.
know.
Other than that, though, I mean, truly, it's a fine stay away spot for both sides. I don't really want to hit anyone against Lance Lynn, and I don't really want to pitch Lance Lynn either. So it's fine to
Well,
stay away from the rest of this.
I say that, but you could make a case for Lynn, depending on how heavy the righties are for this team. Like if
I
they're going to
guess.
roll out two lefties, then I'd have some interest in a pinch hitter lefty at that too in Larnick. I mean, I don't know. I'm just maybe we're drawing straws here.
Yeah, potentially. I don't know. I'll probably just be happy to stay away from this one. I don't think I'll have much interest.
Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the next game here and focus on the Seattle Mariners and Chicago Cubs. This was a very popular game last night. I'm very glad we were on the right side of it and fading it. I think we're going to be on the opposite side today and playing it. It's going to be Mariners plus 100 behind Chris Flexen. Hayden Wisniewski here, minus 118 at home. 10.5 is the total. It's a great spot for hitters today. Right now, it's 74 degrees in Chicago, Wrigley Field. Always have to pay attention to the wind. It's going to be blowing out 10 to 12 miles an hour here. And yeah, this is a spot where, man, Josh, I was sweating this one out really heavily with the members last night. Lots of ownership on Seattle players. And they ended up, really disappointing, all things considered. I know they took the game to extras and were bailed out by a little bit of Julio late action, but we're loading up on this spot today for both teams, I think.
Ah, you are, man. I'm not. I guess it's just you then.
Okay.
You're all solo
All right.
here. I like Wesnecki, man. I mean, like, okay, so the flexing spot, I can understand that. I don't mind getting some action against Flexen. I mean, he's not a very good pitcher. He wasn't a very good pitcher last year. That certainly hasn't changed this year. But I respect Wesnecki. This is a talented guy. The stuff is there. I know he had a couple bad starts to start out the year, but I think there's some upside on him. And I'm not necessarily saying I pitch Wesnecki today, but like I'm in a spot where I really don't want to target against Wesnecki. Um, I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of my Yankee fandom playing through here on Wesnecki too, but I just don't think he gives up that much, even with the wind being pretty heavy in Wrigley.
Well, to clarify, I will say I like Cubs more than Mariners. That hurts
Yeah.
my Brewers fandom, but I do like the Cubs here. Going up against Flexen, I do think it's a very troll-worthy spot on both sides. So I do want to also mention that, like, it easily could go under this total, but I think I would tend to side with this thing, going a little bit more closer to that 10 number. I will say, in terms of Mariners exposure, I think that you want to find guys that don't hit the ball on the ground as much, and those guys would be Eugenio Suarez and Cal Raleigh. It's kind of it after that. I know Kelenic had a monster smash home run last night, but I'm not going to target that play again here today. So it would be just like projected. It says 3-4. I don't know if we have the lineup for that team yet, but Suarez and Cal Raleigh are interesting plays because if you could find a way to hit a fly ball, that's maybe maybe something that gets to the track. It could actually be a home run today. So we'll find out if that's actually the case. But on the Chicago side, I do want to mention that Flexen has close to a 6 xFIP dating back to last year. We know that he's not really going to bring any strikeout stuff to the table. I would have been more concerned if he had higher ground ball rates, but he just doesn't. So I think that I'd be willing to attack a spot for these righties where we know that he does give up more hard contact to that side of the plate. So I think that I want to start the conversation with Dansby Swanson. I know we'll probably have better shortstop plays today, especially when we get to a spot like Texas and Coors and stuff like that. But I at least want to put Swanson's fantasy score in play today.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know, man. So like while I like this Cubs team more than I like uh Seattle, this is where I kind of come into conflict and saying that like I don't feel like I'm rostering a lot of this team today because who the hell do you roster? Like I guess Dansby's okay, but like it's
It's
not
tough
like
to stack. I
yeah,
agree.
yeah, this team isn't very good when it comes to their hitters, especially against righties. Like Hap's okay, but you're against flexing, you're looking for reverse splits guys. You're looking for righties against them. So I mean, do you feel comfortable enough to play Nico Horner or playing Trey Mancini or playing Wisdom at the bottom of the lineup?
Um,
Like I'm not.
Not wisdom. No. Um, I think I would lean with 1-2, and that's probably it. Maybe 2-3.
Yeah, see that's tough. I don't know. Like I don't feel great about like I guess my thing is that, like, if you're not full stacking this Cubs team, is there a lot of upside to going 1-2 when you could 1-2, like, I don't know, Goldie and Nolan Arenado or something, something along those lines of just like a truly dominant stack on this slate. I'm not sure if there's the same upside when you're stacking
Yeah,
two Cubs.
I do think that this will find a way to be like 6-4 or 6-5, and you're just like kind of shooting darts at some spots. Um, but I will say I will at least throw out the Dansby Swanson fantasy stuff, and if you wanted to be a little bit more conservative, over 1.5 total bases is something that's in play too.
I think the Dansby thing is fine. I like the Dansby spot, and I'm fine one-offing him if that's what it comes down to in DFS. But I think going beyond that is just tough. I think mini stacking this team or even trying to find a full stack of this Cubs team is rough. Um,
Yeah.
okay, I think we're good there though, Jared. Let's talk about a spot that I'm actually interested in. Talk about this next game.
Yep. Let's go ahead and focus on the next game. We have Kansas City and Texas. Right now, the Royals are coming in as a plus 240 money line underdog behind Jordan Lyles. Jacob deGrom is on the mound for the Rangers. He's a minus 295 home favorite. Surprisingly, that is not the highest home favorite today. But we have a lot of really big superstars on the mound here. So let's go ahead and start talking about this one. The total is going to be sitting at 8, which kind of is, I mean, it's definitely like very heavily based towards the Rangers dominating here. So let's go ahead and talk about this Rangers team. I think when you look at the game we just talked about versus the Coors game, this Rangers team is actually really, really interesting. And I made a take here that I will say I was wrong, but I still feel like the analysis was pretty good. It's going to be different today because I think you can fully go load up against Jordan Lyles here in this spot. But Josh, we talked about Greinke being reverse splits. The Rangers had a lot of lefties in the lineup. I liked what Marcus Semien brought to the table yesterday, and the lefties, specifically Corey Seager, just went ham on Greinke, which was kind of weird to see. But anyway, I was wrong about the Rangers yesterday. I guess they didn't put up a ton of runs, but they still ended up scoring a lot. Anyway, though, today's going to be different. I think that pretty much everybody that's in this lineup, if they go lefty heavy, are going to be in play against Lyles here.
Yeah, and even the righties, right? Like you put Young in the lineup, you put Adolis Garcia, like all of these guys should be in really good spots. Marcus Semien even too. So Lyles definitely worse against lefties. Like that's what you want against him, but I think righties should be able to attack him just fine today. There's a lot of upside here against Lyles. Another team that definitely competes for a top 3 spot is this Rangers team, in my opinion.
Yep. Definitely. It all kind of starts with Corey Seager. I think we both like Semien and what he brings. Like if he gets on base, he is in my BVP article today. I won't tell you what selections I like from him, but I love what Semien, if he gets on base, he's going to be in a spot where he can score a lot of runs. Seager, though, I think has to be one of your top shortstop plays, and that's where I'd pick him over Swanson, etc. on a DFS site. So that's where I'll have that. I think that where, if we get a spot where Lowe's in the 3-hole, I like that a lot too. Even the guys at the bottom of the order, like Jonah Heim had a really good game yesterday. Josh Smith contributed. So just going to have to see how that line shakes out. Would be really depressed if we got Brad Miller hitting leadoff today. I hope that doesn't happen. But yeah, it starts with Corey Seager. And so I think that you can take a look at that. What would you prefer? Would you prefer over 8.5 fantasy score on Prize Picks? Or I know we don't have underdog shown here, but he has his fantasy point number is 9.5, which obviously caters to Prize Picks being better. And then some of these hits, runs, RBI numbers are really high today. His sits at 2.
I'd probably lean 8.5 on Prize Picks. They're not even giving you 1.5, or they're not giving you any hits, runs, RBIs number over on Prize Picks. So I guess I just lean with that Prize Picks number. Prize Picks or the fantasy score number is fine on Underdog. Like I don't think 9.5. It's not that bad. You're just getting the extra point for the walk counted in there. Right. So yeah, it's not all that bad. I think both spots are pretty solid. Don't be scared to target the bottom of this lineup. Like I know you kind of just diss Brad Miller. I don't think he'll hit leadoff, but I think he's a fine as like a cheap piece today. Also, really like you mentioned Jonah Heim. I think Jonah Heim's solid. Really like Josh Smith, man. I mean, I talked about this guy a ton last year. Has some really good speed on the base pads. This Rangers team is known as one of the more aggressive teams in the MLB when it comes to stealing. At least that was the case last year. It hasn't necessarily translated this year. I don't think it's. I think by the end of the season, you'll realize though, this team is still aggressive when it comes to stealing. And Josh Smith is a big reason why, because he's probably the quickest guy on the team right now. So don't mind him at the bottom of the lineup in terms of a DFS savings play to potentially round things out for you if you need some cheap plays. But definitely top guys. I also really like Nate Lowe here. Just a lefty, 3-hole, hopefully. You get 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs over on Prize Picks. I like that number a lot.
Yeah, I think that's solid as well. I'll put that in the chat here. We don't have this lineup yet, but I think that we'll get the majority of those guys we talked about in those spots.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I think just to kind of put this in perspective here before we move on, I know Coors is getting closer and closer. I do think that we both, maybe you disagree with me, but from our analysis, it looks like we have the Rangers over the Cubs and the Mariners, and potentially over the Braves as well, that we've talked about.
Not over the Braves for me. I like the Braves more. But I think they're over the Blue Jays, potentially.
Yeah, and that's going to be probably a little bit contrarian, which is fine. I think I like what the Rangers bring to the table. Specifically, I just feel like this is a spot where, I mean, we'll talk about DeGrom here second, but he has, in my opinion, nothing's a for sure win, but I think that he's a really, really good setup today.
Yeah, I would agree. We're talking about all these pitchers. We're talking about, is it going to be DeGrom? Is it going to be Manoah? Is it going to be Shohei? I think it's pretty clearly DeGrom, honestly. Like, we'll give the case for Shohei, but I think when it all comes down to it, DeGrom's been the better pitcher this year. He had that one rough start against Philly, but even through that rough start against Philly, it was kind of shown through xFIP that it was a lot of bad luck. His xFIP's last season was at a 1.92. The xFIP is still solid this year at 1.54. The K rate's all the way up at 46%. This Royals team is just gosh awful. They have a lot of high strikeout hitters, and there are some low strikeout guys that have been pretty low strikeout this year. Salvador Perez at 7%, Pasquantino at 10%. But I think those guys even strike out against Jacob DeGrom. And then you have the really high K guys like Dozier and Maisley and Melendez that are just really big K risks. So I think DeGrom could mow down this team. I also think something that not a lot of people look at, but what I've been looking at to start out the year, seeing where the public's going. It seems like the public's kind of banking on the Rangers winning this one, whereas the public is going against the Angels. We've seen that line shift over 30 points towards the other team just in the past couple hours, and we've seen the opposite for the Rangers. We've seen points shift their way in terms of sports betting. So even makes me more for sure that DeGrom gets the win. I mean, we all know the narrative with Ohtani, right? Like, he can do everything in and out, but sometimes his team just doesn't come through for the win there. And
Right.
You need those 6 points when it comes down to it. Like, those 6 points are huge.
You absolutely do. And that was, I mean, thankfully, again, we sneaked out a win yesterday, but on FanDuel, but like, we didn't get the win from Elder, and thankfully, like a couple other really important pitchers, as Castillo dropped a win, Scherzer didn't go and get the quality start. Like, those extra numbers on FanDuel really, really matter, and I know that they matter for those fantasy scores too, on the prop stuff. So yeah, it's going to be a situation where that's really, really important today as well. And I do feel like people chase the Ohtani stuff, whether it be props or fantasy or in general, and we'll get there when we get there too. But it was a good note to bring up. When it comes to DeGrom, he's the clearest P1 on FanDuel and DraftKings, and I guess we can make cases to double pay up. But again, I think that having a guy under 8K on DraftKings is something we should focus on as well for pitching.
Wonder if they're going to give us any strikeout numbers for these batters over on the Royals.
Oof,
you know how they give us these K numbers sometimes?
Yeah.
I'm not seeing anything. That makes sense.
Yeah, backstory. They got absolutely hosed yesterday with Andrew Heaney. Heaney's, I think it was either 5.5 or just six flat, and he struck out the first 9 batters that he faced, or he got 9 outs, 9 strikeouts, and finished with 10. So I would be very shocked if they put a DeGrom lineup, and if it was, it probably is closer to 8.5, 9.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
Like, What's the highest you would feel good about that?
About the DeGrom number, the K number?
Yeah.
Uh, Probably where it's at now. If it got bumped any higher, I would probably stay away. Actually, you're at 9 right now. I probably wouldn't take it at 9. I'd probably only take it like 8.5. I mean, he can get double digit for sure, but I don't know. I think maybe you said it about something else in the Discord chat, but you said you're just begging to be pushed. That's what it feels
Uh,
like.
yeah. Same thing with the fantasy score. We're not. I don't want to like poo-poo this because we like it a lot. We like playing him on everything, but like you need 10 strikeouts for him to hit this number of 50, which I think he can still do. And not saying that everything needs to go perfectly. Like he pitched very well against Baltimore. I'm just saying that, like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would feel maybe I'd feel a little bit better about the fantasy score than the strikeout number. Honestly, I don't know
I
how you
don't
feel
think you
about
need
that.
10 strikeouts. Unless so the way, if you think that he's going to get the quality start, right? Then you think that he's going to get the win. That's 18 for the 6 innings that he pitches plus the 10 for the quality start in the win. That's 28.
Uh-huh.
That leaves you at 22 left, I guess 23 to actually get over 50 and a half. So that's 7 strikeouts, right? And that's
Yes.
assuming that he doesn't give up an earned run and stuff. So like
Right.
maybe you say he gives up 1 earned run, that's 8 strikeouts. I feel like you're better off with the fantasy score number is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Well, let's
Don't write it
let's
up. Don't
put
write
that
it
up.
up. No,
Don't
don't
write
write it
it
up.
up.
No,
All
no,
right. All
no.
right.
It's
Let's
not
take it
it's
off.
not that good. I'm arguing for argument's sake a little bit here, but I think you're a little bit better off with that fan. If you really want to take a DeGrom prop today, I think you're better off with that fantasy number if you're looking for something to sweat there.
Yeah. Still a sweat regardless. If you're playing him in DFS, then just play him. I think
Yeah,
is the better way. Yeah. Okay.
not a bad
So
way.
let's go ahead and move on here and talk about the next game, which is going to be the core spot, St. Louis, Colorado. Right now, St. Louis is coming in as a minus 172 road favorite behind Miles Mikolas. Kyle Freeland for the Rockies plus 144 at home. 12 is the total here, so this is the highest Coors total we've had so far this year. Shouldn't be a shocker. I know that the Cardinals kind of disappointed, all things considered, the last couple days here. I think this is a spot where they can get on the right side of that. However, the thing that keeps prodding in the back of my head here is something we've talked about on the podcast now twice, because this is going to be his third start. Freeland, we touted that you touted specifically, giving credit where credit's due here, that he pitches really well outside of Coors. Dude had a really good start in Coors last time out against Washington. So what is it? What's the consensus today?
Think against St. Louis. I'm gonna bank on the other side.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
well,
bank
I
on
hope
these.
so.
Yeah, me too. I mean, the xFIP is certainly up there at 6.17. The K rate's not there. If you're not striking out this Cardinals team, you're not going to do well against them. If they're able to put the barrel to the ball, then you're going to see the ball fly, most likely. So, obviously, anything can happen in baseball. That's kind of what you saw last night with this Cardinals team. Not every team is going to do well in a spot that they're supposed to do well in. This is the spot where they should do well, though, and I'm going to bank on that after last night. I think there's a lot of upside here. Freeland, I think he is just begging for a smacking around right now. Like with the xFIP being so high, with the BABIP being so low, there's going to be some negative regression here, and I think you get negative regression when you face one of the better hitting teams in the MLB.
Right. So we'll get to Goldie. I think he's obviously one of the best players on the slate. I also think that we need to start this off with Nolan Arenado, and I think that the narrative of him going back to Coors is kind of old now, but really struggled last night. Just couldn't put it together. He was very low owned. I think that today on FanDuel and DraftKings it'll be different. I think that people will go to the spot, but Josh, he was under 20% last night. Didn't really work out for us, but still, I liked the spot yesterday, and I like the spot way more today. I think that you're looking at Arenado and you're saying to yourself, like, the BVP is there. The fantasy scores are just a little bit too low for him here.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's some upside in the Nato spot. I think the Goldschmidt spot is good, though. 2.5 hits, runs, RBIs. Man, you're
Home run.
asking for a lot there. That you're asking for a lot. Does a home run hit it? Yeah, I guess it does. So that's probably what they're taking into account, is that he could probably sum 1 yard. So
Yeah, that's why I want the fantasy score, to
Yeah,
be fair.
I was about to say I like the fantasy score a little bit more here too. Um, yeah, I think that there's Goldschmidt, Nato. I think Contreras is going to turn it around sooner or later, man. I think it's only a matter of time here, and he's really good against lefties, so that's a spot that I want. So I don't mind Contreras in this lineup. You can go to the top of the lineup and get a guy like Tommy Edman too. I don't mind
Yeah.
that. Or you can go to the bottom of the lineup. I mean, one of our favorites here at RotoRadar, Juan Yepes, is going to be probably batting
Yep.
ninth in this lineup, and he could certainly take it to Freeland in this start. I wouldn't be all that shocked. So I like this spot for St. Louis. I mean, it's pretty simple. We're not going to be different than the industry here. They have the highest implied run total. They should have the highest implied run total. This is a good
Yep.
spot. I feel like maybe the spot where I disagree with the industry is what we do with the other side, because I feel like a lot of people might stay away from Mikolas when I don't see any reason why you should.
We'll get there. I want to get one more take out there, and it's not a FanDuel take. I think the price is way too high. But Jordan Walker is at 2,900 on DraftKings. If you're looking for salary savings in this Coors game, I think that's your dude today. Um, I know it's a small sample size, but dude absolutely rakes against lefties as long as he doesn't strike out. So I think that lines up pretty well today.
Yeah, I don't mind that. That's solid.
But yeah, Colorado side, this is where that like third team comes in. We talked about obviously how much we like the Cardinals. Their live totals almost at 7 here. We talked about a lot of teams competing for that second place, and now the Rockies are coming in where technically are lower in implied team totals than the Blue Jays and the Angels, who we'll get to soon, but they have the same implied total as the Cubs, right around the Mariners, Rangers, and Braves. So I do agree with you that there are plays here that, like Mikolas, he shouldn't be. Probably makes a lot of teams 5-man rotations, but he should not be this high up in the Cardinals 5-man rotation. So let's go break down what individual plays that might be.
Yeah, well, I think the big thing for me with Mikolas is less so, like, I think he's a respectable pitcher. He's not a guy I typically would target against. I think what really gets me on this play, though, is how much he uses the curveball. For those who are in the stream that don't know and didn't hear my spiel on this last time we talked about the Rockies, the big thing about the elevation is how it changes pitches. So you're going to see less break to basically any pitch. So guys who throw the fastball and are visiting cores are still going to do okay. I mean, yes, those batters are going to have the advantage of the elevation as well, but guys who can throw fastballs aren't going to struggle all that much. It's those guys that throw those loopy pitches. You know, when guys focus on curveballs and sliders and even sinkers, sometimes they end up getting affected in cores. That's what Mikolas does. He throws his curveball like 20% of the time. He's throwing his slider nearly 20% of the time. That's 40% of his pitches that are breaking balls that are just begging to get crushed today. So with knowing that, we're looking for guys who can hit that curveball pretty well. Chris Bryant being one of them. I know he lost the hit streak, but I still think he's seeing the ball pretty well. He's still been on base every game this season, so I like the upside that he's bringing to the table. I don't mind CJ Cron. I don't mind a lefty here in Blackman or McMahon. I just want some plays here. I think I'm leaning with Chris Bryant the most out of everyone, but yeah, I just like the upside here.
Yeah, I think that's so far this season we've come to learn that it is kind of hard to stack these Rockies in certain situations when you're looking at DFS type stuff. I think that's where the prop stuff might lean, where I'd favor that a little bit more. But I do think that it could pan out for you. I mean, it worked out for us last night on DraftKings. I went the 1-9 route and it ended up working out there. But we've seen that this Rockies team just has been able to put up numbers against this Cardinals pitching staff, no matter who they're thrown out there this series specifically. So I think it can work out today more as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. We'll get back to actual sorting out. I do want to kind of like wait until we talk about the Angels in the next game to kind of finalize the top stacks. So let's go ahead and focus on this one now. Washington and LA is next right now. The Nationals are plus 260 on the road here behind Gray. Ohtani for the Angels minus 320 at home. 8.5 is the total here. I understand that the actual money line here is pretty massive, but I do think that we should at least learn from our not mistakes, because I think our take was accurate last time. Last time that Josiah Gray was on the mound, I know that we loaded up and so did the field on Angels last night. Uh, I just feel like maybe they don't have a lineup that can work against this kind of pitcher. Am I crazy?
I wouldn't say crazy, but I don't think I don't know. They're pretty strikeout heavy, I guess. So I see your point at the end of the
I just think
day.
that they'll be super righty heavy here, right?
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. And if they are righty heavy, it will definitely be tougher against Gray. You know, that's kind of our MO last year was anytime you got a righty heavy team, that's when we would end up playing him, and usually the take would do pretty well. Um, I could see it being like a couple guys on this Angels team. Like I could see it being solely Trout or solely Ward or solely Renfro. You know, one guy has a big game. And if you can find that guy, I think it's probably one of those guys I just mentioned. But I'm not going to take the risk of rostering it in DFS. I think this is one of the lower stacks that I care about today. I don't think Josiah Gray is that bad. Like I know the walk rate's really high, but if he's not going to have a lot of lefties to face off against, he's not nearly as bad. He's above average against righties.
Right. I mean, the not including Otani, they're going to have Jake Lamb probably in here. I mean, Anthony Rendon got scratched yesterday. I'm not really sure what that was about.
Or back tightness.
Right. Okay. So who knows if he's good to go today? Renhefo is a guy that's going to be. I mean, I think that I would like him a lot more if he was up at the top. But considering Taylor Ward is not hurt yet, I mean, he's going to be probably at the bottom of the lineup. So you just run out of player spots that are really good. I do agree with you that I think maybe one of these guys hits him pretty well here. I mean, Renfro hit a home run last night. Trout kind of had an off night, so maybe it's the opposite today. I'm not sure, but yeah, I mean, this Angels team is going to come in with the third highest implied team total, and I'm just not sure that that's something I can buy into.
Yeah, I can get behind that. How about this number, though, Jared? Shohei Otani and Jacob deGrom, 16 and a half pitcher strikeouts. Can you take it?
You know, that's actually not that bad.
It's not that high. I was about to say it should be like it should be way closer to 20 than 15, like it is right now.
Yeah.
Like
Are they just saying that Shohei might not put it together?
I guess. I mean, if you take deGrom's Prize Picks number, which was a 9, then you're saying that Shohei needs to get 8 to break that. That's not all that. I mean, what did he do in his first 2 starts? Hold on, let's see.
10 and 8.
He had 8 and 10. So I mean, yeah, I mean it was Seattle and Oakland. Seattle's okay, but
7 today.
not. Yeah, I'm shocked that it's that low. Yeah, I don't know. I think you could hit it. I don't think it's the worst prop ever. It's a fun bet. There you go. It's a 5 pick for sure. Your last piece of a 5 pick.
Yeah, I could see us putting that in there actually.
Yeah,
that's how good it is. So you know, obviously regression could come with a strikeout number anytime, but these are some of the better spots on the slate, and we've been okay. So maybe we should revisit this. I know we can probably move through the next couple of games fairly quickly. I want to just at least mention, where are we at in the whole Washington strikeout theory this year so far now?
I think they're pretty heavy K rate wise. I mean, it's a different roster than when we had that take last year. There's a lot more guys on this. Not a lot more guys, but there are a few more guys on this team that are a little bit K heavy. So for those who don't know, last year we were kind of staying away from attacking this Washington team. They were pretty good at not striking out all that much. This year, though, they're one of the higher K rates in the MLB, so that's where we're going to bank on it.
Right. I mean, having Candelario at the top of the lineup along with Alex Call, those are 2 fairly easy Ks right there to begin your lineup. And then even Meneses, one of their better bats, strikes out at 36% against this handedness this year. Now, obviously, a lot of that small sample size stuff, but if 2 of their guys, I mean, I guess the bottom of the lineup hasn't struck out that much, but yeah, I think Otani, like that's been against who's Washington faced off so far against this year. I just feel like Otani obviously trounces most of what has been brought to the table so far.
What do you mean?
Like he's better.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Rate suggests.
Yeah, you lost me there for a second, but I understand. Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is definitely I'm trying to think back if this Washington team has faced all that many studs.
Atlanta.
They faced Tampa Bay, didn't they? So maybe I don't know if they got McClanahan and they got Drew, didn't they?
Yeah.
But Drew's not Shohei, obviously. So yeah, this is probably the top end ace that they've seen so far this year. And yeah, he could really take it to him.
Interesting number. Anyway,
Yeah.
when it comes to DFS, where does this play not match DeGrom for you?
I think at the end of the day, it's just K rate. Like, K rate and just ability to win games. Like, we just don't see a lot of wins for Otani at the end of the day. I think DeGrom has the better spot in terms of that. We just talked about how we don't like this Angels offense all that much. Doesn't it just culminate into another spot where it could very easily be 1-1 going into the 7th and they don't bring out Shohei again for the 6th
Yep.
and he ends up no decisioned? I don't know. I'm trying to think. Who did the Yankees had someone very similar a couple of years ago when it came to a guy that they just didn't put up runs for. I don't remember who it was, but
Oh well,
it's.
Corbin Burns is that guy, so maybe we can use that as
I
a
mean, Burns has
lead-in.
been that guy. DeGrom was that guy with the Mets for a really, really long time. So like,
Yep.
yeah, I don't know. It comes down to the win, one, but two, the K rate. I mean, it's so different. Like DeGrom's K rate is all the way up at 46%. Otani's is good, right? It's at 33%. When you're looking at last season's stats, it's at 37% last year, but 46%, 37%. I think DeGrom's the more elite strikeout pitcher.
Yeah, I don't think that part's as close. I mean, we're talking about this, and some people are probably like, "You guys are crazy." Otani's a minus 320 home favorite, but whenever he's on the
Look where
mound, it's
Vegas is
a lot
going, man.
smaller.
Vegas
Yeah.
knows what's happening. That's why they're bringing these odds down. So here, I'll tell you where it's shifted from. You guys can check this out if you go over to Fantasy Labs and go look at their Vegas dashboard. It's a really great tool that I use to track odds. We've seen this shift from minus 360 for the Angels to minus 325. That's a huge shift. You don't see that big. That's like saying like a -9 favorite to a -7 favorite in NBA. Just not based off of injuries or anything, just based off of betting. Like that's a huge shift to go 40 points the other way.
Yep, agreed there. In terms of money line percentage, it's one of the clear. I don't know. I mean, I understand, but when you look at the other guys like Manoah as a huge home favorite, DeGrom as a huge home favorite, those numbers aren't near what that is in terms of differential.
Yeah, for sure.
And just to further one more point on that, Manoah opened at a minus 250 favorite, now is at a live minus 290. So,
Yeah, and even DeGrom opened at minus 265, now almost at minus 300. By the time the slate starts, or by the time Otani, well, I guess not by the time Otani starts because DeGrom starts before him, but by the time DeGrom starts, you could see very similar money lines for DeGrom and Otani by that point
Yep.
with how the money is shifting.
100%. All right. I think we've spent enough on this now, but good to discuss, especially on a slate like this. But again, I think I did we like the Otani plus DeGrom over 16.5 Ks, but played in a 5 flex. It's just not something you should be betting in a two pick.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right. I think that's it for now. Not interested in Washington despite everything we said anyway. So
yeah, for sure.
Let's go ahead and move on. We got 4 teams to go, 2 games left. This next one's going to be Milwaukee and Arizona. Right now, the Brewers are minus 126 on the road behind Corbin Burns. Merrill Kelly, Diamondbacks plus 108 at home. 8.5 is the total. Saw pitching dominance from the Diamondbacks last night behind Zach Gallen. And we also called the Ketel Marte spot on the podcast yesterday, as well as Christian Walker. I was very, very surprised. Or not surprised, but proud of myself that, I was kind of the only one on that take yesterday. So everybody was on the Ketel train because he was cheap. I don't think anybody plays the Diamondbacks today, but you can. So 2 things on this. 1, Burns has not proved himself this year, and 2, DraftKings is just baiting you to take this at 8,500. So I know this is a play where, like, on a different slate, we'd probably have more interest, but just say your piece about Burns here.
Yeah, man. So I sent you the piece on Burns, I think, earlier this week. I'm going to find his Twitter real quick because I don't want to say some of his stats without shouting him out because he's the reason I know about all this. But Lance Brozdowski, I probably ruined that, at Lance Bros over on Twitter, has been putting out these pitcher reports recently. He does really good work with his pitcher reports. You can tell he really studies the game when it comes to pitching. He was talking about Burns' stuff and just saying how it's down across the board. The velo's down, the curve's down, the breaking is down. They have this new stat this year called Stuff Plus. It essentially takes the pitch, takes all of the factors, velocity, break, everything, puts it into one number. His Stuff Plus is down on nearly every single pitch so far this season. So he's been, all the credit to Lance on knowing all that stuff and finding all that stuff out for himself. But it's a great tool to use, and I'm using it. I think Burns is going to struggle here, man. When you consider how good this Arizona offense has been, how aggressive they are on the base pads, I could see Burns really struggling through this one. And if he's losing velo on his pitch, then all it means is that it's going to give these guys more opportunities to steal bases too. So I'm back and forth because on one hand, I have all the stuff I just mentioned, right? Burns has been struggling. All the stats are saying so. On the other hand, he's struggling against righties. He's still been pretty good against lefties. He's not striking out lefties, but he hasn't been allowing hits to lefties. You want righties against him, really, and there's not a lot of righties that you can like on this team. I mean, Christian Walker's okay, but he's been really bad against righties this season so far.
Right.
And then the only other righty they're going to have in the lineup is Moreno. If you want to attack some lefties, I think that's the way to go. But I don't know. I guess that's where I'm limited, is that I want to attack this Diamondbacks team. I think you could get some really good tournament exposure to them in DFS. But in terms of props, in terms of trying to attack them that way, I don't really see a viable route, especially because Prize Picks, I'm not going to say they're scared, but they're not giving us very many selections here. We only get selections on 4 of these hitters out of the 9-man lineup, and all of the selections kind of suck. So I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
No, I mean, you're not forced to take any guys there, so why focus on that when we have a lot of other plays that we've posted so far and talked about? And yeah, I mean, they're going to rank as a team outside the top 5 of stacks, outside probably the top 8. So it is what it is there. I think that last night was a good night to target them against Wade Miley, and I just probably end up staying away. And the more important piece, though, is that I think that it's a good spot to just stay off of Corbin until he gets it together.
Yeah, I would agree.
Other side, though, Brewers hitters going up against Merrill Kelly. I know that Kelly didn't have the best start in the world, or hasn't had a great 2023 necessarily, but I do respect what he's bringing to the table against righties. Where it comes to things here is that I think the Brewers are going to have a lot of lefties in this build today. Wrote up Willy Adames as a interesting BVP play. Nothing stands out against Milwaukee here. I think that this is a stay-away game in general, but let's get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I would kind of agree. I don't know. When you face the Dodgers twice, what else can you expect on a 6x FIP, right? You're just, we've mentioned it on the podcast before. You face a team twice, you're going to do worse in that second start, or at least they're still going to get to you in that second start. That's exactly what they did. So I don't know how to really judge what this Brewers team is going to do. I don't think there's anyone that really jumps off the board in terms of how they've been hitting so far this season, outside of, maybe going to Anderson at the bottom of this lineup. But matter of the fact is that he's at the bottom of the lineup, so I don't really have much interest here. Willie's been good so far this year, so you already mentioned it. I don't mind that, but outside of that, I'd probably just be fine staying away.
Yeah, he just has to not K. I think the ground ball rate's low enough and the hard contact's high enough against this to make it work. But again, there are other spots to target here.
For sure.
All right, last game on the board, we have the LA Dodgers and the San Francisco Giants. Dustin May on the mound for the Dodgers is a minus 164 road favorite here. Alex Wood plus 138 at home. 8.5 is the total. The weather, I at least need to mention it. 50 degrees, winds blowing out towards center at 20 miles an hour. But remember that the Giants, Oracle Park, is going to mitigate a lot of that. So it's more like 5 to 7 mile an hour winds blowing out to center. If I butcher that, let me know. I'm pretty sure that's what the case is there.
Yeah, you nailed it. You're good.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot to stay away from in this game. And I think the one piece that I want to just state, because I know we're running out of time here, and I also have a different question for you in a different game that you care about more. Mookie Betts has the best BVP on the slate when it comes to facing Alex Wood. The K rate to lefties is 15%, very low. Ground ball rate's the lowest on the team against his handedness. The hard contact's one of the highest against this team, or on this team against his handedness. I like Mookie, and that's kind of it. So share your piece on this game.
I like Mookie a lot, man. I like righties a lot. I mean, I don't think Wood had a really bad start to the year with the White Sox. I think that there's something to be said about that. I think there's something to be said about this Dodgers team being away from home in a neutral park in terms of hitting, park factor wise. But we saw the upside they had last night. They absolutely smashed I think there's potential to smash again, especially if Wood doesn't have his stuff.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of upside here, man. So again, it doesn't rank in the top 5 probably, but this Dodger team has a lot of upside. So the Mookie spot is the main spot I wanted to talk about. You nailed it. I think Mookie over 8.5 fantasy score is where I'd probably start out with.
Yep.
But I think getting JD in there is a potential option. Don't mind getting Trace Thompson in there. Don't mind getting Will Smith, JD Martinez. Like all those righties are going to be at least halfway decent plays against Wood.
Yep. Love it a lot. I don't have much else to say on this though, and I don't know. The Giants just aren't going to grade out for me very well today. So do you have anything to say there? I think that we can say Dustin May's ground ball stuff's pretty good, and he doesn't really limit much doesn't really limit or does a very good job in limiting damage, is what I meant to say.
Yeah, I could agree with you. Doesn't really get a lot of K, so not really a lot of upside for him. But yeah, I think Dustin May is just fine. Jonathan asking Mookie at 10.5 on UD, is that also a play? I know they gave one more point for doubles and walks.
Let me. I'll give you. He has a couple of options here that I know aren't on the screen. But so Josh can't play on underdog, guys. So I'm going to be the representative for today.
I can't play anywhere, to be fair, but yeah.
yeah. So Mookie Betts has a little bit of an inflated number on underdog. It's 10.5 fantasy points. Remember that he does get an inflated number for walks. They give 1 point higher. It's 3 on there versus 2 on Prize Picks. So if we're really bullish, which we are, I mean, I am, and then Josh, sounds like Josh is too, I think that number is fine. But I will also say I think that 1.5 total bases is in play, and then maybe something that's maybe a little bit better, and Josh can be the judge of this too. 2.0 hits, runs, RBIs is also in play.
Hey, how they keep giving us this 2.0 number,
I know,
man.
it sucks,
Just give me 1.5, please. I guess I'd still lean with man. I don't know. I don't want to get fucked by 1.5 total bases. I guess I'd lean with 10.5 fantasy score, but just take the number on Prize Picks. I feel like you're better off there. I know they give you better numbers for walks and for doubles, but I'd still rather just take him over on Prize Picks.
If you are restricted to only playing underdog, then I think you can at least make a case that 10.5 is still solid. Because yes, he could get a single and not get that total bases number, but that's stolen base and getting hit in by the guys on his team. Plus, being the leadoff hitter in a road game for the Dodgers means that he'll probably get 5 at bats here. So I like that 10.5 number still.
If he got 3 walks and got a run off of one of those 3 walks, that hits. No,
yep,
that hits.
Underdog has 3 for walks.
That hits on underdog, but not only does it hit on underdog, it doesn't hit on Prize Picks because he would only get 6 points plus the 2. That would be 8. You'd get hooked. Yeah, that's crazy. Something to keep in mind. You know, do the math in your head. Usually, you can do it yourself, and you can think about different scenarios. And that's a lot of the time how I make my decisions on whether I want to do, UD, Prize Picks, hits, whatever you're doing there, total bases, all that jazz. All right, I think we're all good, Jared. I think we're all set. Last couple games are pretty simple here.
Yep, very simple. We're going to call it here. We're a little bit over time today, but I want to just mention this for those that are interested and have the ability to play on Prize Picks. The Prize Picks community voted that one of Josh's favorite players in the league, Garrett Cole, is the taco for today. So, Josh, they bumped his strikeouts from 7 to 5.5 here. They're facing a Guardians team that we know can be pretty... there are guys that definitely swing and miss, but they at the top of the lineup is definitely a contact kind of situation. And I know that we didn't have time to bring it up on the show because it's not on the main slate, but Jose Ramirez is kind of the kryptonite in Yankee Stadium. So how do you view 5.5 pitcher strikeouts on Prize Picks for Cole?
Are they in Yankee Stadium today? I thought they were in Cleveland.
Great question.
Yeah, I understand why he might be the kryptonite. That lefty swing probably. Yeah, they are in Cleveland today.
Sorry, it's in Cleveland. My bad.
Yeah,
but he still has numbers against Cole.
Yeah, good luck if you're taking it. I think. What were the options today? I don't play on Prize Picks, so I don't usually vote on the taco stuff. So what were the options? Because I would have said take anything except for this Garrett Cole number.
Yeah,
probably.
I don't have that in front of me, but I know that Jimmy Butler was also included, and people don't like that today, this morning. So
at least the Jimmy number's fun. Like
Right.
like I don't really want to bet against the Cleveland Guardians here, strikeout wise. At
No,
least
it's a tough matchup, man.
it's a
I don't
terrible
like it.
matchup. The Guardians are the like eighth best team in terms of striking out against righties, like not striking out against righties. So this team's very good at limiting strikeouts, and I don't know. Cole can sometimes get the job done, but I don't know. It's a tough spot. I would stay. I mean, if you want to bet it, go for it. I personally don't like it, but
Yeah, I'm on that side too. So, all right, we should get out of here. If you guys want to refer to some of our plays in the comments, go ahead and take them there. I think that we like the Rangers, some of the Rangers props the most. I feel like the Cardinals are on the higher side of things, but their spot against Kyle Freeland is really, really nice. We love Mookie fantasy score as well on Prize Picks. Some of the total base numbers on Underdog are fine, but again, 10.5 on Underdog's also okay there. I think the spiciest take of the day is that Otani DeGrom over 16.5 Ks. If that hits 17, we wouldn't play it. But if it was 16.5 still in a couple hours, we can feel free to grab that.
yeah, I can get behind that. All right, Jared, let's get out of here. I think we're all done. Yeah, I think we're all good. Thank y'all for listening as always. And as always, my name is Joshua Reimer. Good night and good skill.